Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
And welcome to today's episode of I Never Knew But My Dog Did podcast. I am beside myself excited. I'm so happy that you are all here. And if you all know me, especially my faithful listeners, you know my story. You know how my dogs saved me from myself, taught me how to love myself unconditionally. They gave me the self-worth that I have to change my life after living 45 years the same way of not loving who I am. So you all know the story, why I wrote the books, how I channeled the first book. I love all of my podcast guests. Don't get me wrong. I love all of them. And we all have some kind of a synchronicity and an attachment to one another, why we cross each other's paths. But I've been fangirling and gushing offline with my next guest because I don't think I've ever been more aligned with a human on this planet in purpose as I am with my next guest. And you all will see why. Y'all will see why. In a moment, let me tell you about her. Dr. Alexia Mellor is a former academic turned dog mama, canine nutrition consultant, Reiki master, and animal communicator who now takes a holistic approach to nourishing our dogs, ourselves, and the planet. Alexia's doctoral work used her own art practice to investigate how to better engage individuals and communities with the complex problems of climate change. Look at that. She's so intelligent. I should have said Dr. Alexia Mellor. I hope I said doctor, because she does have her doctoral and her PhD. So I'm so thrilled to dream up new possible visions for the world we want to create. She discovered that climate change is not just a scientific problem to solve, but rather a profound spiritual call to question our values and who we think we are. Now Alexia has turned her attention to the unique invitation of the human-canine bond. Oh yeah. She's a firm believer that dogs are healers and our mirrors. As we explore how to best nourish them, we are also invited to take a deep look at how we nourish ourselves and our planet. Alexia is also the host of the Mystic Dog Mama podcast. Please go listen and subscribe, guys. I want you to go support her. And it was born out of a desire to create a community focused on both the esoteric and practical sides of walking the spiritual path with our dogs. It is the place for inspiring stories along with practical tips and tricks on how to lead a more holistic, nourished, and soulful life with your canine companion. Welcome, my new friend, Alexia.
Oh, thank you, Maureen. I'm so thrilled to be here with you.
Oh, I am so excited. I always wonder if people think I'm like this crazy lady that, dog. But when I meet someone who's also as crazy dog as I am, it's like, I get you, you get me. There's this level of connection and beauty that I think dogs and babies and children have. That's my thought. The purest innate love on this planet is dogs and babies. That's, they come only to be there for us. And the babies, they only know pureness. And so the dogs, to me, they live this short little life. I wish they lived forever and lived my whole life, but they don't. But they live this short little life, and their entire purpose is joy and to make us happy. So I love everything that you do. But I want to ask you because here on I Never Knew, because my impact story involved dogs. Can you tell me what your knee story is, or maybe just that moment where you went from talking about climate change to like that spiritual jump to, oh my gosh, I understand this connection now?
Yeah, totally. It was a really fun experience in many respects, very traumatic and very fun at the same time. It was like just this incredible, beautiful mix where, like I said, so I was a practicing artist that used participatory approaches, which means that I wasn't just making like sculptures or paintings. I was making objects, but the whole idea behind that was that it then facilitated conversations. And I was really more interested in those conversations that were coming about and critical thinking and envisioning new possibilities. And I ended up being able to translate that way of working into supporting some companies who were looking at doing the same kind of thing around creating different products that were designed for sustainability at its core. But I came away from a postdoctoral fellowship. So I'd been on this track of like, okay, now I feel like I really know what I'm doing. And at the end of that, it was like, this isn't what I want to be doing. And I had this real questioning of purpose. It was beyond just job. It was like everything was coming to the surface for me to question. And I felt really lost. And I've been on the spiritual path since I mean, forever. I've been very connected since being a really young child. But I've gone through different waves, and I'm sure many of your listeners who have had similar kinds of journeys where you get that sort of 2x4 moment where the universe smacks you with something. And it's kind of like, if you're into the tarot, it's the tower moment. It's like everything that you have sort of relied on as a form of identity or a kind of crutch for security or what you think things should look like, what you think your path is, all of that came crashing down for me. And this was in 2019. And my mom said to me, she was spending some time in Mexico, and she said, why don't you just come for like an extended Christmas break? And then you can go traveling around, take a little bit of a break and figure out what you want to do next. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. So I decided to do that. And my whole intention was that I would go on a pilgrimage. My mom had previously walked the Camino de Santiago, and I wanted to do my own version of that and whatever that looked like for me. And so I had it at the core of why I was doing this is that it was about reconnecting with myself in a new way, going traveling in places I hadn't been, that kind of a thing. And then what ended up happening, so during that extended Christmas break, was that we experienced COVID. That kind of came around, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So everything was shifting, and again, even the landscape of the work I was doing was shifting because it was based upon people getting together. So all of a sudden, that didn't even exist. So everything I'd been questioning was being questioned even further for me, and so I really had to go into this surrender place. But right before lockdown, I was just feeling this sense of despair that frightened me that I hadn't felt before. I've struggled with depression throughout my life, and I've experienced that dark night of the soul, but this hit me in a way that I hadn't experienced it before. And I actually was kind of worried because there was a numbness that I hadn't felt before. And that was a new thing for me. And I ended up going to see a local curandero. And so if you're not familiar with curanderismo in Mexican culture, that's the folk healer that people traditionally go to for everything that they need. So you would go there for like, I've got a sprained ankle, or, I've got headaches, or I need spiritual support, whatever. It's that full holistic perspective. And I made an appointment thinking that I just needed my chakras unblocking or something. I needed something to shift the energy that I was holding on to. And I show up for the appointment, and he asks me to remind him why I'm there. I was like, oh, I just feel like I need my chakras unblocking. And he laughed. And I was like, well, that's a little unsettling. and he said, you don't need your chakras unblocking. You're a bruja, a witch, or what they're meaning with that is like an energy worker. And you need to learn to work with your energy better. Like you've been absorbing everybody's energy, like you've not been purposeful with your energy. You need to learn to control, to work with the power that you have. And I was like, okay. And he said, but pay attention to dogs and cats that are crossing your path at this time because they are healers for you. And that's what opened the door for this, really. And it was literally days later when hard lockdown was announced, we got a knock at our door asking, but a neighbor was asking if there was any chance that we could foster a puppy. And I thought, you have to be kidding me, right? Like, you just have to be kidding me. And so I was like, okay, but again, with just the intention of fostering. And so it was my dog Lucky. He showed up at the door. I didn't name him Lucky. He was named Lucky by somebody who doesn't speak English. Like, there were all of these signs of, okay. And I just surrendered to it. I just totally surrendered to it. And it wasn't any one moment. It was the whole process of embracing, bringing this little being into my life, and then all of the lessons that have ensued from there, because I thought, oh, it's just going to be picture perfect. And it's been anything but, like the story doesn't end with like, oh, it's so happy. It's so wonderful. Lucky presented with health issues as a pandemic pup. He presented with behavioral issues because he was 12 weeks old when we went into hard lockdown. So I didn't get to socialize him. And so then when we were able to go out, anything and everything terrified him because he'd never, like, new surfaces, new sounds, like he wasn't used to seeing a lot of people or other dogs. And so my journey with him was really about moving through that discomfort, learning with him, and consequently looking at, when I talk about dogs as our sacred mirrors, I think sometimes people misinterpret that and they think that I'm meaning that the dog is our direct reflection. And I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that what a mirror does is it offers us the opportunity to see things differently, a new perspective. You see things you couldn't see normally. And what his behavioral issues, his health challenges, all of that have done for me is actually ask me to look at myself with, what are the assumptions I'm making around this? What are the judgments I'm making about myself or the world or him or how a dog should be, how I should be? All of those things kind of came to the fore in a way that had he not come into my life, I wouldn't have had that kind of rub to be able to experience that. And so it's been such a gift of showing me these shadow sides of myself and lovingly integrating them into who I am. And that's led me down a completely different path now of looking at this idea of nourishment. So nutrition plus nourishment is more than just what we're putting into our bodies or our dogs' bodies. It's so much about the full holistic perspective of mind, body, soul. How in the invitation to support him is that truly an invitation to support myself. And so now I support other women on doing the same thing, where their dogs become the gateway for them to really step into that space of self-love, self-compassion, self-acceptance, and self-curiosity. Like, who are we becoming? Which is really exciting. So that's my long-winded story of how
No. We absolutely love that. And again, we're so aligned, unbelievably aligned, because nothing else could have gotten me to that point. So my history of the past of, all these terrible narcissistic relationships and abuse, I had no belief in myself. And it was after another breakup and me just sitting there saying, what's wrong with me? Why can't anybody accept me? And seeing my dogs, Chihuahua, Jade, and I had a Australian Shepherd named Brody who passed in 2022, who were looking at me. And it was just this epiphany moment where I saw them look at me with the purest admiration and love. And it was just this moment of, wow, that's it. How that feels with them looking at me is what I'm lacking for myself, because I'm continuously trying to get that from all the humans in my life and the world out there to love me. And I'm chasing this love when these two beautiful little furry beings are like, you're enough. You're enough. And that's what started me on my journey. So with Lucky, and I always say dogs choose us. I don't care what anybody says, dogs choose us. They will find a way to come in. And I love that. And what I love is where we're really aligned is when I am going to write a book, like I'm getting ready to write book number 4. And what I do is I hone in on their behavior. I hone in on what are they doing in their everyday lives. And that's how I make my chapters. And so in my books, it's like, This is funny. The other day I was long for an extensive amount of time. We do these little pop-up shops in Austin. I don't want to make this about me, but I want to tell you the context. So we do these pop-up shops. I have a boutique called My Dog Is Everything Boutique, and we make healthy treats for dogs, which again, here we are, only 3 ingredients, healthy paw bombs that are lickable and organic, shampoos that are organic. So again, you and I aligned. And so we were gone for an extended amount of time. And I came home and Callie had all her toys out. Now, when I'm home, she's laying with me or she's got her ball and we'll throw her ball. But to come home and see all of her toys laid out, I look at that kind of behavior and I think, she was distracting herself. She's got some anxiety and I could see how she was trying to self-soothe. And so I take those incidences and that's what I put in a book and say, look, we can find things that self-soothe us. Go take a bath, go take a walk, or get something that you really love, like Callie with your toys. It's when you said that, it really is the being aware of how their behavior is so relatable to how we live our lives, minus the overthinking, the over emotions, the doubts, the fears, all that. They are so mindful of what they are doing and they do what they want when they want to do it. And if we could only just follow that lead. And so I just love you so much for that, because I get that. I get that just like you do. I am so excited to talk about the animal communication. So this is an interesting thing. And we talked about this offline where I said, okay, so I'm a medium and I get messages for people from their whole spirit team, ancestors, mentors, protectors, all that. I have tried to communicate with animals and I don't know if there's a block or I want it so bad. Like I can't communicate with my relatives or my spirit team, ironically. And so I feel like I want it so bad, I can't do it. So let's talk about how do we demystify the beliefs around animal communication and how can we sort of hone our own ability to do that?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing this up and thank you for using the word demystify, because I think that's so important to do with this. I think a lot of people think that only some people are special and have the ability to do this. And my whole approach and just my philosophy around all of this is that that's so not the case. You are special. We are all able to do this. And I think, I have troubles connecting with Lucky in that way. I don't read for him. I ask a friend of mine who's a communicator to connect with him, because I think part of the issue is when the animal is so close. It's kind of like, I also read tarot, and the way that I use tarot for myself is different than how I read it for other people, because I'm invested in the outcome, right? When I'm asking for myself.
Okay.
And so I'm swaying it. And it's the same with when I'm trying to connect with Lucky. I'm invested. Whereas I can read for somebody else a lot easier because I don't have a backstory. I'm not carrying any personal baggage for them. So I think sometimes it is easier. I mean, I can read Lucky, but it's not as, if I'm really concerned about something, I go to a friend of mine and ask them to do it. So I think that's kind of normal for us. So it's easier if you're starting out to start reading other people's animals and ask a friend, for example, or, there's plenty of groups online as well where you can kind of sign up and ask to read different animals to practice it. But essentially what's happening when you're doing that is that we're connecting to the part of us that is already connected to everything. Mm-hmm. And when we come from the perspective too, that time is an illusion. We're not in this kind of linear space that we think that we are. We can connect with anything and everything because everything is this now moment. Everything is connected in this now moment. And so what happens for me when I'm doing animal communication is actually really similar to when I am getting prepared to do a tarot reading, when I'm getting prepared to do a Reiki session. It's that centering within myself, that deep part within myself, like a meditative state. And for people who struggle with meditation, it doesn't have to be like a full out Zen state. It is not about getting rid of the thoughts. I think that's also a misconception that happens. It's just quieting and becoming that witness. So I can see thoughts coming across. I can see or, I'm aware of things that are going on in my environment. I'm just not attaching to them and then following them through. I'm just witnessing it pass by. So when I get into that space where I am calm and witnessing, I'm therefore receptive. And the big thing that I think this is where a stumbling block comes for most people is that you start to get maybe a sensation, maybe you hear something. It depends on how you're kind of set up individually, right? I tend to be somebody that I get like a feeling and a knowing, like physical sensation feeling and a knowing. And sometimes words and sounds pop into my head, but it's in my voice. If I'm hearing words, it's not like I'm hearing somebody else's voice. So I just wanted to bring that up because some people think that they hear stuff, but they think, but it should sound like it's coming from somewhere else. Otherwise, I'm making it up. For me, that's not the case. It sounds very much like I'm thinking in my own head. When you're running over your to-do list or whatever, you can hear yourself thinking. That's what it sounds like to me. But what starts to happen is I become aware of those things. And the real key is to just not judge it. This is where most people get hung up. They will dismiss it immediately. They think they're making it up. They think that it's not true. And along with that is you have to be not afraid of being wrong. Because if you're afraid of being wrong, you start shutting it off. And it's the pattern when I work with women around intuition as well. It's the same sort of thing that when you want to cultivate your intuition, and you'll know this, Maureen, that what really helps to cultivate your intuition is when you get a hit on something that you follow through on it. When you follow through, you're demonstrating that you're listening and that you're willing to take action. And the more you do that for the small things in your life, the more you get more hits for the bigger things in your life and that you can act on that. So actually working on developing your animal communication skills is also tied to getting the hit of I should turn left here, or getting the hit of, maybe I should call that person, right? It's not necessarily about just focusing on when you're trying to work with your animal, but it's paying attention to the intuitive hits that you're getting generally. And the more that you work on developing that and acknowledging your intuition and following up on it, the easier the things like the animal communication become, because you've set that precedent for, okay, I'm willing to trust that this is actually coming in, and then I'm taking action on it. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know a lot of people will feel like, oh, I can't do that. That's for other people. It's not true. And it's not just practicing it with animals. It's practicing it in your life generally. And that ripple effect, then it kind of pulls over into supporting your ability to talk with your animals. But essentially, like the process of it is getting into that space. And then something that I do, and I do this with Reiki too. People will do this differently. So it's not like there are no hard and fast rules with how to do this. This is what feels good for me. I bring my attention and my awareness to my heart chakra because, like you were saying, animals are heart-led beings. They're just pure love, right? That's where they connect. They're not thinking beings. They do think and they're very intelligent, but that's not what they're leading with. They're leading with their hearts. And so what I like to do is bring my conscious awareness into my heart space. So I'm filling myself up with my own love and with universal love first. And then I visualize for me, it's like a tube. It's like a tube of loving light. And it's usually like either pink or green that I associate with the heart chakra. And I imagine that connecting to the heart chakra of the animal that I'm connecting with. And I just wait until I feel a connection. And what that feels like for me is almost like, so I said that I feel things physically, right? Like I feel almost like a connecting in, like when two things kind of like connect and then screw together, like that kind of clicking in. I feel that kind of clicking in. And what happens is that tube feels like there's a weight to it. I can feel there's almost a physicality to it that's going on. And so that's when I know that I'm connected. Other people will connect from third eye to third eye. Some people use photos. I use photos because that helps me to narrow in on the specific dog. Other people don't. It's finding what works for you. But basically, it's your intention. It's your intention that's establishing that connection. Like I'm sure it is for you with the mediumship stuff too, that it's so much about what are you focusing on? You create that focus and then you allow the energy to flow through that focus. And then for me, the way that I do the communication sessions is I let the animal lead. So I tell them why I'm there. If it's that the pet parent has asked for a specific thing or, whatever, I just say like, this is who I am. Like you would to a person, right? Like, this is who I am. I'm really glad to meet you. Are you okay with this connection? And, your mom wanted me to check in with you. And yeah, whatever you want to tell me, just tell me. I let them lead first. If there are specific questions that the pet parent has asked, that comes at the end. It's always about letting the animal say, show whatever they want to do first. And sometimes they don't answer the questions. I've actually had a dog say to me, that's not what's important. So some of it is about what does the pet parent need to hear, what needs to come through. And it's not always what you think you want to be asking. So it's being open for that. But going back to the fear of not being, or like eliminating the fear of being wrong, I just note everything that I'm getting. So I'm basically a scribe. I'm not there to interpret it. I'm not there to make meaning of it. And I have to write down everything. Not everything is going to land for the pet parent right then and there. They might say, well, that actually doesn't make sense. But I've had people say that and then come back to me weeks later and be like, oh my God, I get it now, kind of thing. So I want to share really quickly an example of like why it's important to write everything down, because you don't know what is going to resonate with somebody. And I was in a workshop where I was learning to do animal communication. And it was set up where we were in a group. We were shown a picture of the dog, and then we went into a short meditation, and then we just had a couple of minutes to write down what we were getting. And then we would share everything. Everybody took turns just sharing what they got. There was no discussion of it, just like that. I got this, and this. Great. Thank you. Next person. And then at the end of everybody sharing, the pet parent then gave feedback on everybody's. And the very first thing, so this is the first animal, it was a little dog, a little Chihuahua mix. And the first thing I hear was spaghetti. And I was like, are you kidding me? I can't do this. No way. No way. I was so annoyed with myself, but I was aware I've only got a few minutes to connect with this dog. Okay, just write it down and just do it anyway. So I said, I feel like an idiot, but first thing I got was spaghetti, blah, blah, blah. She comes around, the dog mom comes around to me and said, I can't believe you said spaghetti. And then she tells me about how they're in the process of moving back near her parents. And she has this and she's told the dog that this is what's happening. She has this constant issue. She has to tell her dad all the time, stop making buttered spaghetti for the dog as a treat. So had I not said that, so for me, there's no connection between spaghetti and dogs, right? Like that makes no sense. I was completely judging myself. Right. Had I not followed through and said, I feel like an idiot, I feel like this is wrong, but I'm just going to say it anyway, there wouldn't have been that validation. Oh my gosh. So I tell people that all the time because for me, it was so validating. And it's just such a reminder of you have no idea. Your job as the communicator is not to interpret. It's just to relay. It's just to relay what's going on. So the more that you can get into that space of not judging, the more stuff comes through. So again, it's that building, right? It's that ripple effect. The more you're demonstrating trust, the more you will get things, the more the animal will say specific things to you. And also, if they're leading, you can't control it. Yeah. You can't control what they're going to share. They're going to share whatever they're sentient beings that have their own agency. And when they're given the opportunity to communicate in this way, they choose what it is that they want to bring forward. I've had some animals just want to talk about the food that they're getting, and other animals are relaying like huge spiritual messages. Like it's the gamut, and you just have to be willing to suspend your disbelief in yourself, right? Yeah. Like just get rid of that and allow whatever needs to come through, and go from there with it. It's a trust fall.
It is. And I couldn't agree with you more, because as I've worked on, doing my readings, every reading got better and better. And I did the same thing, because I would question myself and I'd say, I need specifics. No. I didn't need specifics. And I got out of the self-doubt of saying, when people would say, I'd give them something, they'd go, no, I don't have a grandpa with this name, right? No, I don't know. And so I had done a reading for a friend of mine, and I said, I have the initials of this older man, and he's constantly by your side. I can see mother's side, father's side, and I said, they are your protector. And I said, if you almost get into a car accident, they're the one that stops it. And she was like, almost got into an accident yesterday, but she didn't know who this person was. She goes home and tells her mom, hey, do you know anything? Their parents are divorced. She said, do you know anything about this? Her mom goes into some of her records. It was a great grandfather who passed away a year before she was born. So,
Oh my God.
I get what you're saying. And when I stopped doubting it, I started looking at myself as a conduit. I'm only just letting it flow through me. So this is so exciting. So listeners, I have to tell you, because this is one of the main reasons I reached out to Alexia, is if you guys are familiar with Callie, she's on the cover of My Dog is My Relationship book. And now Alexia didn't know this. She said, send me her date of birth, her gender, and a picture. And so I sent her those things. She knew nothing about Callie. And before we got on here, I said, oh, this is stuff about Callie. And she said, well, this all makes sense. So she's going to tell us what she found out about Callie. And I'm just going to give a little preface, everyone, that she had a very traumatic puppyhood. And she came to us a couple of years ago when my grandson came to us as well. So I cannot wait to hear what she got from Callie.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to share with you and to kind of give everybody an idea of how I did it. So exactly like Maureen said, I just had the image and her name, and I just asked her, first of all, if she was okay with me connecting with her, and she was. And I introduced myself and said, we don't have any specific questions. We just want to know what it is that you want to share at this time. And I connected with her a couple of different times, just because that's something I like to do, because some other things will come. Sometimes they'll focus on one thing, and then another time they'll focus on another one. So I'm going to read you my notes. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to read you what I wrote down and my experience of it, and then we can talk about it. So when I started, as I was getting into that state that I was describing to you, of the meditative state and connecting, I had this sensation of full-on snuggles. Like my face was in her fur, like she was all up hugging me. I've got chills now. She was just so excited about getting to talk to me about this, about the attention. And then she started running in circles. She was just so happy. She came back up into my face with kisses and paws on my shoulders, like very, very loving. And I wrote down that I get the sense that she likes physical connection with her humans. And part of why that is she's grounding her energy on her humans.
Yeah.
And she showed me the image of a dark colored couch. I don't know if you've got a dark colored couch, but she showed me a dark couch. And then she showed me her. So sometimes it is bouncing around. It's not like they're giving you a movie, like necessarily. It's like bouncing around, telling me different things. So we went from her showing me a dark couch, and I felt like it was against like a light colored wall with like windows behind it. And like there was like light streaming in. And then she showed me her outside. She was laying in the grass, happy and full of joy and energy. And then she started running around in circles again. And I heard my girl. So I don't know if that's about her or anything. I just heard those words, my girl. Then she showed me that she sits on your laps, and she says that it's like a joke about her not being a lap dog, but she is secretly a lap dog. And she actually showed me, it was like a mountain goat sitting on someone's legs, and you laughing, like she can't get close enough to you, is the feeling that I got about her. She's got a very happy energy, but also a very nervous energy. And sometimes they cross over. She showed me at the time that she had a bit of a headache on the front of her head. I felt a headache on the front of my head is how I got that. Then I heard Taylor Swift and hot dogs. Again, no idea what that means. I just write it down. The second time, she took me back to the dark couch again, and I saw that again with like a light colored wall and windows behind and light coming in. And then she showed me an image of, it was me in this case, but like it would be representative of you guys. That I was cooking, and she came sniffing around and said, "What's cooking?" She was very curious, like, "What's cooking?" And then she was really close to my legs, like she was hurting me, like try to keep me like a sheep. And she conveyed that she feels very protective of you and your family, that it's literally her job. So she takes her job very seriously. And I got a sense of people that she considers her family that might not necessarily live with you, but they're people that she engages with that are important to you. So they're not necessarily people in the house, but she is saying that they are her family, and she's very protective of that whole unit. And she shared with me this. I am going to jump. She shared with us a little bit later, but you know, in Peter Pan, the dog nanny, and how in that era dogs were often used to watch the kids, to kind of keep an eye on the kids. She shared that with me. Like, that's her role. That's how she sees her role, is as the nanny. And I don't know if that's directly related to kids or that's just her kind of job, but she takes it very seriously. Then she showed me her splashing in the water, and she showed me her walking like a dressage horse, where they pick their legs up like exaggerated. So I got the sense that it might be at a beach or in the waves, that there's like this funny walk that she was doing. And she was super playful. She showed me spinning again. I heard lots of laughter around her. And she said, I want to make mom happy and laugh. And she told me, she told me that she's funny. She's like, I have a great sense of humor. And she said she knows she's incredibly smart. Oh my God, I've got chills as I'm telling you this. That she's really observant, and that she used the word witty. So that play of, like, she knows she's smart with the humor, right? She said the words, I've been here before. And she said, I'm not the first. And then as she was sort of in front of me, she showed me the silhouette of a Native American man. I don't know what that is. I'm just relaying it. And I asked her if she has a message for you. And she said, be brave and be bold. And then she said, I'm anchoring, meaning she's energetically anchoring you guys. And she said, I love you. And I don't know if this may be related to you doing your stuff as a medium, but she kept talking to me in my left ear. She focused everything in my left ear. Like, she'd come up and like whisper what she was saying to me in my left ear. And I had this feeling of her being very wise and connected. In terms of her body, I felt some warm energy spots behind her shoulders and on her hips. So I feel it's not an issue or anything. I think that's where she's carrying tension. It feels like that's where there's like energy stuck, like right between their shoulders and then on the hips. So I did some clearing with her on that, but just as a point of awareness that I felt that. And then again, like I said to you, the nanny from Peter Pan energy. And that's how she ended it. So does any of that resonate?
All of it. Absolutely all of it. And listeners, I'm going to validate everything. Okay, she's so big. She's 75 pounds. And we have a cat, and we have a little chihuahua, a little 15-pound chihuahua. And everybody's allowed on the beds and the couches. That's just my thing. When I have animals, they're part of my family, and they're no different than the humans. And so Jade is always like sitting between my legs while I'm watching TV, or Kitty will come and always sit on my feet. Yesterday, my husband is like, look at Callie. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's like sitting on me. And I didn't even realize she was like there. Like, she was so sly about it. We have this new thing we've been doing. And I was telling Alexia offline, she will sit in front of me, block my view to the TV. And I'm not kidding you, like, have a staring contest with me in my face, because she sits as tall as I do. And I'll just look at her and say, what do you want to tell me? What do you want? And I did get just, I love you. I just love you, Mom. I just love you. She's floofy. We call her Derpy because she's funny. She's so funny. She does the silliest things. She drops her ball and watches it bounce. And she used to, when we had a pool before we moved, she would drop things in the pool to see if they float or sink. Just witty. Just like she said, she makes me laugh. She cracks me up. So the interesting thing about the Peter Pan nanny, I have a granddaughter she just turned 1. And when that granddaughter is over, she's always on the floor with her toys. Callie is right by her side, brings her ball, and makes Carter just crack up. I mean, this is Carter. This is baby Carter.
Oh, little munchkin.
And I swear, Callie is like her protector. She's like, and Jade does too, which is really interesting for a Chihuahua she's not a typical Chihuahua. She loves everybody, but especially kids. But Callie is never, a foot away from her, and Carter just gets a kick out of her. So I went, oh my gosh. And here in Texas, we moved from Arizona, and we have a group of family that we hadn't been around for a while, and everybody dog sits for each other. They have a border collie. We have Callie, who's an Aussie border mix. So the herding, yes, absolutely the herding. I can't go anywhere without Callie by my side. I mean, I can't go to the bathroom. I can't go to the kitchen. I can't go outside. So we have this thing, and I'll try not to be long-winded, but I'm validating everything you say. There's this thing we've been doing lately where we always go out. I'm a night owl. So we always go outside on the patio at night, and I love the silence at midnight or whatever. And no matter how tired she is, she goes out with me, and then she goes on the couch, which is a dark couch. And yes, we absolutely have windows that look out to this beautiful animal or like nature preserve. It's a park, green belt, whatever you want to call it, but it's very wild, like looks like a forest back there. It's beautiful. And she'll sit on the steps and just listen to the birds or whatever. But we come in, and every single time she gets up on the couch, and I have to tuck her in. Tuck her in, meaning I come over and I put my face in her fur, and I tell her how much I love her and what a good girl she is and how precious she is. And it's the last thing we do before we go to sleep. And I rub her chin and I go, "Sweet dreams. I love you, Callie." And so, yeah.
Oh.
She definitely gave you all of it. And she's our human garbage disposal. She'll eat anything. So in the kitchen when I'm cooking, oh yeah, it doesn't matter what it is, she will eat it, as opposed to the diva Chihuahua. But I'm so happy that she's happy. I'm so happy there's no residual. I'm so happy that she understands now that she's loved. I have been worrying about her hips because she's been a little slow to get up. Now her brother, who passed away a couple of years ago, Brody, who was like my old man, we called him the grandpa, and he was just the sweetest thing. I've seen him in this house, even though he didn't live in this house. But we've noticed, and this is so cool, Callie's taking on characteristics that Brody had. So when you said, "This isn't my first time," I almost was like, wow, like her and Jade have never played. In the last few months, they've been playing like Brody and Jade used to play. And
wow.
Yeah, so the protection of the baby, that's what Brody used to do. Brody was this very stoic, very just protecting, loving Aussie. And Callie's taking on where she used to be very just kind of the derpy, brother or sister. And she's taken on a little bit more of the caretaking and nurturing, like nanny or nana. And we've been noticing that. My husband and I will say, "Wow, Brody used to do that. Brody used to do that." And so the hip thing, he died. He had hip dysplasia, and Brody did end up having basically cancer of the bone cancer. And so I've been really worried about she has epilepsy as well, and I've been really worried about her hips. So I've been massaging her hips. So it all just completely makes sense. She did such a good. I'm so proud of her. She just communicated so well, and I just think you're absolutely incredible. You got everything. You really.
Thank you.
You did such an amazing job, and listeners, I'm telling you, if you don't hear this story and believe this, that either you could do this, or please reach out to Alexia, because this is a gift. I mean, I wanted to cry so many times when you were talking and you said you had full body chills. I did too. And that's always my validation from spirit. When I get
Mm-hmm.
messages, I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah. It was all validated. And the relating part of that is when I do readings, I know exactly what you're doing. Stuff just comes and you have no idea. Like, sorry, I'm just going with it. I'm writing it down, all of it. And it was all just on par. The hot dog thing, I don't know about the hot dog thing. I don't give them hot dogs. Yeah, weird. But
Who
see,
knows?
something will pop. I
You'll
know.
find out.
Yep. Something
You're gonna
absolutely.
you're gonna hear a Taylor Swift song too, and she's gonna be like, "I like it, Mom."
Oh my God. See, yeah, the Taylor Swift. No relation on that one either. We don't listen.
Me
Um,
neither.
that is
Me neither.
incredible.
But
Yeah.
again, you just have to be willing to say it because you never know. And again, it could be further down the line that something comes out. Like it could be weeks or months down the line that something comes up and it makes sense. So you just have to relay it because you never know. You
You
just never know.
don't. You know what I thought of when you said my girl? So Callie used to be my daughter's dog, and she was in, a pretty traumatic, abusive situation. And her daughters, my granddaughters, live in Arizona, and I haven't been able to see them. But one of the granddaughters was very, very attached to Callie. She'd call her Cowie because she had a little bit of a speech impediment. So Cowie. And when you said my girl, that's the first thing I thought of was Braylon, and today's Braylon's birthday.
Oh
I
my
know.
God.
I know. When she said my girl, I thought, because they were so tight. She asked me, Grandma, will you send a picture of Callie? Can you send a picture of Callie? And she'll be like, oh, my Callie. So when it said my girl, it was just the first thing I thought of. And I went, oh my gosh, it's her birthday today. So it's just
Wow.
amazing, isn't it? Just the connections and
Totally.
those messages. So I love you, and I'm going to be contacting you for my grand dog, my kitty, and my other dog too. I mean, I'm doing it
You
all
bet.
because I cannot wait. My husband is super duper duper attached to our kitty. He is like he's never had cats that he ever grew up with, and this cat and him are like, for example, we have a little water fountain. He doesn't get a bowl, he gets a water fountain. He is cleaning that thing like every other day. If he's got a little divot out of his food bowl, my husband will fill in the little divot, and he comes up and gets my husband upstairs to make him come down and wait on him. My husband says, I'm his butler. And the water fountain was not working yesterday, and he goes, oh, I already ordered another one. I go, you never order anything on Amazon, but your kitty's fountain, heaven forbid, and I fixed the fountain and it works fine. But he's like, no, now we'll have a spare. But he's so attached to our cat, Mr. Grayson. I just can't wait to see what Grayson says about the family, because that's just insane. But I want to talk about, where can our listeners find you, all the information that we can definitely get you some people coming to you for some communication or Reiki or all the things, the beautiful things that you do spiritually and healing wise, because that's what we need in this world, and that's what this podcast is about. So tell us all about you and where to find you.
Oh, thank you, Maureen, for that. Yes. I am launching my new website, which is going to be mysticdogmama.com. That's coming up this month in August. I'm getting that all finalized, and you'll be able to see how I can support you if you're wanting help with the dog side of things, of how to support your dog through nutrition and wellness. I also use these practices, the Reiki practices, energy healing practices, on dogs. So you can do it for you, you can do it for your dog. And that's also where you can find information about the communication sessions, the tarot, the kind of spiritual coaching that I'm doing for women as well. All be on mysticdogmama.com. But I also want to invite people to come and check out the podcast, because that is definitely my baby. And you can connect with me on Instagram at Mystic Dog Mama. I'm very active on there. And people message me all the time with questions. We start chats. So if you want to get in conversation and know more, definitely connect with me on Instagram at Mystic Dog Mama. I've got all the connections to the podcast. But what I'm really trying to do with the podcast is create the community that I was seeking. And so I bring people on that are talking about all aspects of nourishing our dogs and ourselves, mind, body, and soul. So I'm bringing people on to talk about your dog's microbiome, your microbiome, as well as people who are struggling with the spiritual path and what they've discovered along the way that they can share that might be of benefit to you, for example. So it's really that kind of place, that supportive community that I was really seeking. And everything else that I'm doing is an extension of that, actually. It's coming off of the offerings that I'm creating are based upon what people have been telling me that they want through the podcast. And so extending that community into mysticdogmama.com. But yeah, check out the podcast and Instagram, Mystic Dog Mama.
I love it. I'm volunteering to be a guest too, because I have to
Yes.
continue this conversation, and you can flip it on me and put me on the spot. But no, I love it. I'm going to be stalking you for sure. We're going to be connected, and I love everything that you're doing. And you're right. When you find people that understand that and get that and really love their dogs, and like me writing the books about it, the podcast, which is my baby too, my life coaching, and then the dog boutique, getting to meet all the dog people. There is a connection that we have, that we understand spiritually. Mm-hmm. There's this deeper connection. And, for me, it's nature too, even outside of the dogs and the cats. Mm-hmm. I feel like, I'd be that person that would be out in the wild and hug a tiger. It's just, totally. I feel such a connection. I'm tied to nature. And I once connected during meditation, wanted to see who my spirit animal was, or my spirit guide. And it was a little green sprite in a tree. And that made total sense to me. I'm like, yeah, that totally, because I love that. The fairies and green's my favorite color. So the meditation, guys, and before we're going to close this up, before we go, I just want to say, just be open-minded about it, because you don't have to force anything, but also do not shut anything out. And when you have sort of an ADHD mind like I do, shutting it down is hard, but go walk in nature, go sit in nature. Whatever you're doing, just listen to what's being said and do not deny any of the sounds, the messages, the visions, any of it. Just write it down and it'll all make sense to you later. I promise you that. So, this was so much fun. It was everything I wanted it to be. And I just love you so much, Alexia. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone who's listening, and for people who are opening up to this way of being in the world, because it's so desperately needed right now. We're in a huge paradigm shift. And I think we're at this crux where we're really being asked, are we going to choose to lead with love or fear? And that's an opportunity for each and every one of us to really connect with that deep loving part of ourselves and be that light in the world that we want to see. So for everyone who's doing that in the smallest and biggest ways, thank you. Thank you so much.
I love that. And I think COVID was the catalyst to start that, where we literally had to go figuratively and literally inside. And so that's where a lot of people started that journey and found themselves. And I hope they're still doing it. And with the dissension in our world leaders and our opportunity for voting this November, really look at your candidates and look at who has the most love and compassion for humanity and for one another, and who wants to do away with division and do more inclusion. And I'm not going to get into politics, but I'm just saying, on a human level, just really look at your candidate that way. And what would you want? Which one would you want as a friend? So thank you all for being here. You know where to find me. I'm at lifecoachmaureen.com, and relationship coaching, self-worth coaching, self-confidence, dating coaching, all that fun stuff. Yes, based on what our dogs are doing. We learn about how to nurture relationships and seek and attract relationships once we love ourselves at that level. So that, and then of course the books. My dog is more enlightened than I am, which definitely Callie is. And my dog is my relationship coach, talks about love and relationships. And my dog Bexley is just like me, teaches your little guys, your early readers, mindfulness and emotions are okay, and they're actually a good thing. So thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to leave those reviews, and maybe I'm gonna team up with Alexia because I'm all about the doggy nutrition, the healthy doggy nutrition. And don't forget our treats, which are healthy, only 3 ingredients. They're xylitol free, peanut butter. There's no preservatives. I make them in my kitchen. My dog is everything.net, and we also have clothing and safety items for your puppies. So go on over there and check us out, and we'll get your order and get that shipped out to you. So I love you all for being here, and until next week, mwah.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.